I'm ready. I was born ready. Okay. Can I go now?
My God! I'm going to waste footage on this. Hey guys, Nick O'Neill of Fortuna Found here, and I'm here with Paul DeBacher of Level 1 Kites USA. And during this wonderful COVID-19 time where we can't be out flying kites, we have decided to look over our kites and check them for wear and tear and for repairs, and figured we'd share some of that information with you guys. Things that you should look for when your kites are potentially damaged or what have you. Paul, how many years experience do you have with sport kites?
With breaking kites and wear and tear
With
on
breaking kites, yeah.
Started in 92, so do the math. What is it, 28 years?
Yeah, so 28 years of smashing kites into the ground and
Oh.
tearing sails.
Hopefully not so much of that anymore, but yeah, that certainly has been a large part of my kite life.
Yeah, so yeah, let's get started. So the first thing you want to look over on your kite when you're checking for wear and tear is you're going to look at the sail. Kind of the biggest piece, the most obvious piece. You're going to check for holes, for tears, for stitching coming undone. Now, if you do find a hole, what's something great you can do to maybe fix it?
There's colored ripstop repair tapes. Of course, you've got multiple kites. You might have multiple colors in those kites, and you're never going to have the right color for the color hole that you've got, basically. So what I recommend is a Mylar repair tape. Cut yourself a little patch, preferably without straight angles, because they will peel off.
So round the angles like a donut.
Basically,
Okay.
round the angles, like a circle.
Like a, yes. I think food,
If
he
you
thinks
can,
shapes.
if you can do a circle, that's great. And I typically would put the reinforcement both on the front and on the back side of the sail.
Okay.
There's two reinforcements, and that Mylar stuff is really thin. It's see-through. You barely see it in the sky. Having said that, I don't really care about those things. I had a competition Jinx, almost all white sail. I leaned it back into what turned out to be
a stabby bit of grass?
Yeah, a stabby bit of grass or something. I leaned it back, and all of a sudden there was a hole in it, and I put a black patch on it. It still worked really well for me. So, but no, the pretty solution is indeed clear Mylar, front and back, no straight angles.
So is there a difference between, say, like a pinhole and a 3-inch tear? Should I worry about a pinhole in my sail?
Nah, I wouldn't.
I mean, it's ripstop nylon, so...
That rip will stop, right?
Yeah,
that
it's
is
not
literally
supposed
the
to tear.
definition, yeah.
So the other thing to check on your sail is if you have venting. So if you have screen mesh and you wear in your sail...
If you're one of those quad line flyers...
You have venting too!
You've got strips of screen, and yes, it could rip. So take a look at that as well. To get back to that original question of the 3-inch tear,
Yeah.
I'd still patch that with the Mylar stuff.
Okay.
I don't.
Not
really
worried
care.
about stitching
No,
it, or
I would go with 1.5 inches or so wide strip, and
Okay.
I'd go 1 inch or so, 1.5 inches beyond the length of the tear on either end, and again, round the corners, and away we go.
All right. With venting with screen material, just replace it. That's pretty much impossible.
That gets a
repair.
little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So, not knowing that much about quad line kites necessarily, but I would almost say just let it go.
Let the whole kite go?
No, not the whole kite. Just don't bother with it. It's going to stop on either end, right?
Well, what if it's torn horizontally?
It's
going to
somewhere.
detach the kite from leaving it.
Get
We
yourself
love
a-
quad
Get
line.
yourself a dual line kite.
Yeah, time to upgrade to a dual line kite. All right. So, anyways, the second thing to check for, you're going to look over your spars or your sticks or whatever you want to call them, your leading edges, your lower spreader, your upper spreader, and what are some things that you really should look out for when you're looking at your spars?
Well, I see two main things in frames, right? You got your leading edges. If you have wrap tubes, you got got your Sky Sharks, your Avias, your Goodwinds tubes, your whatever, what have you. You're almost always are going to have a two-part leading edge, which means that you're going to have a ferrule, a connector. If you bang your kite into the ground a couple of times,
Or a garbage can.
That happened to somebody I know. Kite comes down straight into a garbage can on the beach, folds itself nicely into there. You've got more problems at that point than just your leading edge connector. So,
Yes.
Staying on topic, if you bang your kite into the ground a couple of times, it could be that the glue connection is breaking. Now, most kites with two-part leading edges will have the ferrule glued in on the upper leading edge.
Okay.
Because you can replace, in say a competition or a demo situation, your lower leading edge really quickly without having to mess with ferrules.
Without having to pull the whole
Without
leading edge.
exactly,
Oh,
or
okay.
having to glue in ferrules or anything like that. So typically, your ferrule will be glued in on the top leading edge, and of course, if that glue connection breaks, and you bang that kite into the ground, that ferrule moves up into or over the upper leading edge, leaving very little or increasingly little flesh meat on the lower leading edge, and that could become a problem. So at some
Right.
point you might just break your lower leading edge right at that half inch of bite that you
Connection.
still have.
Yeah.
So that's something to look for. Take the ferrule out, sand the excess glue off, re-glue it, shove it back on there, and more glue better. The excess glue will be pushed out. It will be, and what's in there will be gap filling. I recommend a 2-component epoxy glue. That's your best bet, in my opinion.
Super glue work in a pinch?
Yes, it's just typically a bit more brittle.
Okay.
So you might have that issue of you bang something really hard
And it's
and
going
it
to start
cracks.
breaking.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the epoxy glue, the 2-component glue, is just a little bit more flexible, and it will hold up to that kind of thing a little bit better.
All right.
And then the other thing is your oddly enough, mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah, it's a little early in the season for mosquitoes.
I'd say is your degradation of your lower spreader. And I say specifically lower spreader because your leading edges are typically they're covered by the leading edge, by the sleeve, right? But
Right.
if you got your kite out on the beach all day long, your lower spreaders are exposed. Most upper spreaders of sport kites are made of pultruded material. They don't seem to display that behavior so much. Lower spreaders could be wrapped carbon tubes, and that is typically an epoxy resin, which will, over time, given enough exposure to the sun, to UV, it will break down. And you see this prominently on carbon fiber hoods of
Like little Asian race cars and
yes,
Yeah.
replacement hoods.
Yes.
Because it makes your car faster, right?
yes.
Over time, they will display a golden sheen, a golden hue, and that is the UV starting to work on the resin, on the matrix, the material that bonds the fibers together, that transfers the loads from fiber to fiber. It also is a major component in the compression strength of your tube. So if that tube is starting to getting that golden hue, I'd
Toss it?
replace it. Oh yeah.
Okay.
You don't. What the last thing you want to do is break it in an inopportune moment. I mean, you can break it in competition. You can break it in demo. That sucks. But it would suck even more if you're at your favorite flying field and you break it and the thing goes through your sail.
Ooh. Yeah.
Cue the 3-inch wide mylar tape for sail repairs. So yeah, no. If you start seeing that golden hue come up on the tube, just replace it. It's
Okay.
a time. It's gonna, at that point that you see that, the tubes are at such good quality these days. When you see that golden hue, you've gotten a lot of life out of that tube as it is.
So, what's a good way we could check for breaks or cracks in a spar? If it's
That's
like,
another thing. Yeah, I you might have some ultra low wide,
light wind.
light wind kites. I need more drink, clearly. You might have some very light wind kites. You might have indoor kites. Very thin wall little wrap tubes. You can't see a break in those things. And it easily sometimes breaks at the leading edge connector. The ends, they get crushed in transport. So what I do is I take the tip of the tube before I put the kite together. Take the tip of the tube and roll it around in my fingers and hold it next to my ear. And if there's a crack, you can hear it sort of rustle.
Sounds kind of like you can hear the fibers rolling across themselves, right?
It's essentially two parts of material that are grinding over
Instead
each
of
other
hearing it roll through
dynamically.
your fingers, you're hearing a...
Yeah, it's a little grinding, crunchy sound, and that means that the tip of your... Most cases, it's the spreader. The tip of your spreader is crunched.
Is gone.
So, again, change that spreader.
And on bigger ones, you can usually see cracks.
If the wall thickness is sufficient, then yes, you can see like a radial crack come, like the spokes of a wheel, right? Mm-hmm. That is that crack that you can see in the wall thickness. But on very thin wrap tubes, you can't see it. You gotta listen for it.
Okay. So this brings us to our third one: connectors. So the spot where the spars connect
to other spars
and actually frame the sail. Things we're looking for are those connectors to be soft and pliable.
Correct.
What's a way you can kind of determine if it's not soft and pliable? These are rubber or plastic?
They're a plastic, and in most cases a proprietary plastic. Mm-hmm. You want them to be supple, I think is the word.
Supple.
No? Yes?
I like supple.
Good. You don't want them to be cracked. You don't want parts to fall off, obviously.
Right.
Which will happen eventually to some parts. That you want them to be flexible, pliable, essentially healthy looking.
Okay.
If there's a white sheen over them, that means that the chemical inside the part, inside the plastic, that makes the part flexible is evaporating, is coming out. Mm-hmm. So probably time to replace that part as well.
And when we're talking about connectors, maybe you can show like because a leading edge connector and the standoff
happen
connectors.
To have a kite hanging out. So yeah, you got these types of connectors here over top. Make sure that I don't hit my drink.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to look for, and these two get exposure, sunlight, UV, and it will degrade over time. It's just going to happen, and it's okay. The cost of those things is measured in cents, and again, it probably means that the kite has had enough playtime.
Would you just replace the kite at that point?
I would.
Or just replace the leading edge and the connectors?
I'm going to replace the entire kite if one connector is broken, just because I don't want to mess with it.
Okay.
I am joking.
Excluding collector pieces. And...
No. You can. It's pretty easy. I mean, you. Whoops. Better get the kite back.
Yep.
You take the tensioning line off. You take the parts off. Typically, the wingtip caps are not glued on, so they will come off easily. You snap off the stopper clips. Now, hopefully, the stopper clips of all parts have been glued with an instant glue, with a super glue.
And the easiest way to get them off?
Is... teeth.
Okay.
Teeth.
The kite flyer's secret weapon are teeth, cigarettes, and...
Beer bottles.
Beer bottles? Yeah, okay.
Teeth. Yep. Yeah, I use my teeth to get it out. So again, hopefully your stopper clips have been put on there with super glue, so they snap off easily, so the whole thing comes out easy.
Okay.
Replace your part. I mean, again, you're talking about $1 a part.
All right. And next up, we have nose and wing tips. These are, and also the keel tip.
Yeah, keel tip not so much.
That one doesn't get as much.
It doesn't touch the ground, right?
But maybe weights if you have at the keel tip.
Yeah, I have not. Personally, I've not seen a keel tip ever in need of any kind of repair, replacement, fixing.
Okay.
Your wingtip, of course, you do groundwork. The kite is standing on its wingtip.
This wingtip.
There's a lot of scraping around going on, especially on the beach. It's basically sandpaper. So that you're going to have to replace vinyl end caps and end caps eventually. Mm-hmm. Again, matter of cents and no worries.
Right.
But of course
those are designed to be expendable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. The wingtip end caps are designed to...
Yep. Now
you want those to fail before your kite fails.
Exactly. And they're a purposeful weak link in that sense. Your nose, slightly different. You're going to you're going to wear out of your nose eventually, most likely, right here, where you've got that pressure point from the keel. People have sewing machines, people have big needles and good thread, and you can replace a nose by yourself. I personally, if I didn't have you to sew things for me, I personally would go to a kite shop and have them replace the entire nose.
It's usually seatbelt material or something like that, and
ballistic cloth, seatbelt webbing, that kind of stuff,
and some Kevlar on the inside to help prevent poke through. If you are the type that slams your kite into the ground a lot, which happens for those of us that are new,
we're not accusing.
No, it happens, right? Is you're really going to watch your nose and make sure that the leading edges and the spine are not poking through that nose.
And on that note, close to the nose, you've got your connection of your upper spreader. Thank goodness. You got your upper spreader and your keel, right? And there's rubs.
Ah, yes.
So there's typically a wear patch on your kite, and it too eventually possibly might go. Again, after many hours of joy and fun. My trick for that would be a bit of self-sticking Velcro, the soft side of that, and once that
the loops
goes
of Velcro.
It is the loops, not the hooks, the loops.
The loops,
yeah,
the
correct.
soft side,
Stick it on there, and you got yourself some more life. What you don't want, of course, is carbon on carbon rubbing, because either the keel or the upper spreader will go at some point.
Yay. All right, so the last thing that we have would be the bridle. Things to look for on the bridle. Your knots, make sure that they're secure, that they're locked in place.
Which is actually something to look for the moment you get a new kite in. That's not even a wear and tear thing. You want to make sure that your bridles are symmetrical, left to right. Something might have slipped. It just happens sometimes in production where the knot hasn't just not been tied enough. Tied tightly enough, excuse me, and it slips a bit.
You check your bridles before every flight, right? You kind of give a cursory check of making sure it's at least even.
Yep. Yes. If it's even, I can work with it.
I can get around it. So yeah, you're looking that the knots haven't slipped, and you're also looking for fraying. One of the biggest causes for fraying on a bridle.
Sport kites again, dual line sport kites especially, which is really the only thing I can more or less intelligently talk about. You got some wear points on your bridle. You do.
Yeah, here you can.
That's all right. We can make this work. You do your lazy Susans. You do your back flips. So your upper bridle is rubbing over your spreader. It's a wear point on your spreader, but it's definitely a wear point on your upper bridle part.
What's more likely to snap in that scenario, your bridle or the carbon?
Bridle is going to go first, but it's definitely a wear point on the carbon as well.
Itself.
Yep, absolutely. Not much you can do other than keeping it in mind and replacing the carbon if needed. But the bridle definitely is in my experience is going to go first.
Okay. And any other common wear spots on a bridle, like if you're doing yo-yos, and you don't have yo-yo stoppers,
this is why we have leaders typically on sport kites these days.
Well, by leader, you might not be able to see this black line. Here is the corner of where all the bridles meet, and here in my other hand is the pigtail that you attach your flying line to. So there's a huge leader.
It's about a 3-foot leader. It basically protects both your flying line, which is typically a pretty expensive line set.
Yep.
You have to replace that. But it also protects your sail, right? If I'm doing, say, a yo-yo, kite flips backwards. I got this.
You got it? Okay.
And this is why that leader is the length it is. No, we can see it. I'm looking at okay, all right. So now I don't have a very thin flying line cutting into my spreader and cutting into my sail. So that's the point of the leader.
All right. So, are there anything else that you think people should check before they fly, or if they have downtime, like this shelter-in-place time?
This is why we do this video now. Of course,
wash your kites.
Wash your
What
kites. Yep.
should you wash your kites with?
Just rinse it off with water. I'd
Water.
say some hand soap, whatever. But if you come back, especially from the beach, rinse that kite. Take it with you in the shower.
And
after,
don't
after your
put
day
it
of
away
flying.
wet.
Don't put it away wet.
Yep.
Just let it sit out, and I usually just leave it in the shower.
Yeah. Our
as you know.
showers are usually pretty busy.
Yeah. Okay.
They're full of kites.
Okay.
So
It's true.
It's funny.
Yeah, no, just rinse it off. The salt water, it's gonna work on your stitching. It's gonna work on your bridle. It's gonna work on everything. Perhaps but the carbon fiber.
Okay.
But this anything on the sail, even it's gonna go. And the salt crystals that will be left behind, they're sandpapery
abrasive.
too. They're abrasive.
Yep.
So just rinse the stupid thing.
Depending on what the kite is made out of, moisture can also cause the sail to billow or expand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say
Actually, yeah.
less higher end kites tend to use material that
Yes.
is more susceptible.
You've got also then in that area you've got your mildew potential.
Yep.
That's if your kite got wet with fresh water. You want to make sure that it at least dries properly.
Yep. Treat it like a human. Make sure it's clean before you put it away. Well, you don't want dirty human. Okay. I've gone off topic. Anyways.
You may want to cut this part eventually.
No, we're keeping this.
All right.
We're keeping this. All right.
Treat your kite like you treat your human. Don't put it away wet.
Or dirty.
Right.
Okay.
Are we done yet?
We are done. We need to go make dinner and enjoy our shelter in place time here in our beautiful backyard.
Yep.
So yeah, find out more at Fortuna Found, where I'm selling this fancy kite T-shirt. You can also find out more about the Badass and other Level 1 kites at level1kitesusa.com.
Shameless plug.
Is this fabulous man right here. I'll include all those links in the comments below or the description below. Yeah, you got anything else to say?
That's it.
All right.
as we say these days, stay healthy, stay safe.
Yep. And would love to hear what you think about the video. Drop your comments and yeah. Bye everybody.